This is 16-year-old Greta Thunberg, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But her claim to fame as Time's Person of the Year. Now that annoys me to start with. Used to be it was Man or Woman of the Year, and since she's over the age of 13 and an adult in the Jewish tradition, it should be Woman of the Year. Now, Greta has gone from being a single, solitary protester to having audiences with the Pope, the UN, and leading 7 million people in climate change strikes earlier in, I think it was September 2019. I didn't read the whole article. Didn't need to because this is bullshit. Yeah, she's well-intentioned, but she's wrong, and the people who believe her are wrong. Now, Al Gore, after he lost the presidency, got bored and decided to take up an issue and discovered global warming. And when people didn't believe that, the name got changed to climate change. And it's still wrong. Because the assumption is that mankind can do enough damage to the environment to destroy all life on Earth. Now, several years ago, it's probably been 15 years ago, a 13-year-old man called Rush Limbaugh, talking about global warming, as I think it was still called at the time, and said, we can't do this. And when I did some research at the library, and he said it didn't take him very long, and this was really early internet days, so he probably actually had to go into magazines and newspapers to find this, but either way, he said it only took him like 15 minutes to a half hour to find out that on Mars, during the same time frame that our Earth was warming so precariously, that Mars had a proportional increase in temperature, which means this change is coming from, you guessed it, the sun. Okay, we'll be back for part 2 in just a second. Now, here we have a pie chart of the population of the world. Now, of course, it's all us evil first world people who are causing all this climate change. Well, as you can see, the United States is less than 5% of the world population. Germany's like 1.2%, and the rest of the first world is not even listed in this chart. So, less than 10% of the world population is causing the entire globe to warm. Sounds pretty suspicious to me. Now, actually, when I was in college, I was visiting a friend from high school who was a chemistry major. God, she was so smart, and so was her mother. And I hope Lori got her PhD finally. But I made some comment about, man ruining rivers and, causing problems to the environment. And she told me that actually the biggest threat to people is not man-made pollution and runoff into rivers and such, but rather biological. And that stuck with me, 35 years. So yeah, it's, basically dirty water. Mosquitoes, infections in the water, et cetera, ad nauseum. That's why, if you're going out camping and the water's not pure, you need to take water purification tablets with you. Now, here we have a pie chart of the population of the world. Now, of course, it's all us. Okay, here we have a chart of the top economies in the world, and basically it's the United States at 20%, China at 15%, that's 40%, India at a little, right around 10%, a little bit less than that, and the rest of the first world nations adding about another 5 to 10%. So basically a little over 50% of the world economies is responsible for all this global warming. Okay, so we're talking, excluding China, which is basically a second world country, you're talking about 10% of the world population causing enough damage to destroy all life on Earth. Okay. Let's look at a couple of things that global warming activists tell us. The ice caps are melting. Yeah. And so what? In elementary school, and notice I did not say high school, college, master's degree, or PhD level science. I said elementary school science. You put a piece of ice in water, and it floats, and only 10% of that ice is going to be under the water. So, nature's taking care of that point. Also, elementary school science, not PhD science, that if you put something in water, let's say you put a 1 ounce silver coin in there. You're going to have exactly 1 ounce in weight of water displaced. Yeah, water's pretty perfect. So, yep. Ice caps melting is not going to take away the seacoast, not going to bury islands underwater. Just not going to happen. The nuclear bombs. That was supposed to take centuries for those lands to recover. They've recovered already. In the United States, it was one of the Great Lakes, and I know it wasn't Michigan, but I don't remember which one it was. I was only about 9 or 10 at the time. It was so polluted from toxic runoff, basically since the end of World War II, that basically most of the fish had died, and it was guesstimated it was going to take hundreds of years for that lake to recover. It recovered in a few years. Gee whiz. Science does tend to get some things wrong. Now, Mountain St. Helens. This is a natural disaster. And the channel, Discovering 40, who I subscribe to, she grew up in, not right on the mountain, but like 30 or 40 miles from it. So she has childhood memories of this disaster. And the biggest problems still today have to do with the fine ash that's been very difficult to get rid of. You can watch her retrospective on Mount St. Helens on her channel. But yeah, after that, scientists are saying it was going to take hundreds of years for that mountain to recover. And a few months later, the scientists are out on the mountain, and they find the first green plants growing. Gee whiz, they were wrong again. Finally, I have a map of the world here. Of course, it's not exactly proportionate because flat maps aren't, but it's close enough for our purposes. I wish my library had a globe so I could show you on that, but that's okay. This will still do the trick. Now, the current human population estimates of the Earth is somewhere between 7 and 8 billion people. Sounds like a lot, right? Not really. Now, one thing to remember, and you can see this sort of on this map, not as well as I'd like, but 2/3 of the Earth is covered in oceans. And then, of course, you have another percentage of rivers and freshwater lakes. So, we're only occupying less than 1/3 of the Earth because a lot of the Earth is inhospitable to life except for the most hardiest of souls. Basically, the northern parts of Canada, northern Russia, and most of Alaska. So we're on less than 1/3 of the land, and then, of course, mountains and such. That takes up more area that we can't occupy. So let's say we're occupying about 25% of the land. So, yeah, we're occupying a whole lot of the Earth. Matter of fact, you could take the entire population of the world and put it in China, and there would still be room, because most people are going to live in cities. Matter of fact, the largest cities in the world are in Southeast Asia and China. So you're probably going to have probably half the population living in cities. If we moved everybody to China, which is, nice and rural, and then you could have households of 4 to 5 people, which should be a typical household in the world. Not the Western world, of course, because we have population control, and our families are only like 2.3 children, and I think that's even lower now. France has such a population crisis that they're begging women and or begging couples to have children. China tried to institute a one-child policy, and that failed because in China it's the male child, the oldest male child, that is expected to take care of his parents. So girl children have been aborted in massive numbers, so that policy had to be changed. So, yeah, the entire population of the world can fit in China, and that leaves pretty much about 90% of the Earth left to nature to take care of things. Now, do you think a population occupying 10% of the Earth, and it's less than that, 10% of the available land, God, it's probably even less than that, but, you get the picture. Basically, a tiny sliver of land compared to the entire globe, and we can do enough damage to damage the Earth. Sorry, it's just not going to work. So while Greta is well-intentioned, she and her followers are simply wrong. Have a great day.